Actually, something that I'm very interested in pursuing in my own artwork is actually engaging people in the making process. I think we're very unaware of what's involved in making one thing. When you work with something as intimately as planting the seeds and nurturing these plants and harvesting them and drying them, there's so much time and energy invested in it that eliminates any question, first of all, of being wasteful. You're not going to discard any of this stuff because you've invested so much time and energy in it. It gives you a certain level, I think a whole new level of respect for the materials.
Assistant professor and textile artist Roland Ricketts is bringing the traditional art of indigo dyeing to Indiana University.
To be able to grow the raw materials that I use is something that's actually very profound, and I think missing in a lot of production today. We're very whether that production is craft production, whether it's art, whatever that may be. There's something I find that there's a lot of meaning in being able to work that way. You can see it's still oxidizing. See how it's getting darker? You want to keep moving it again for the same reason. All the areas that are above the surface aren't getting any dye on them, right? So if you just keep moving it constantly the whole time, you'll get a much more even dye job. That easy.
Wow.
Pretty amazing color. So the other thing we want to do then is dry these as quickly as possible.
Roland was an apprentice for 2 years in Japan, where he learned how to grow, harvest, process, and dye with indigo. He now passes on these skills to his students.
He's here teaching us about dyes, or about fibers in general, and to not get the information that he knows the most about seems really dumb. So even like maybe half a year ago, I was like, Roland, I want to learn every single thing about indigo because I have the opportunity right now.
I was apprentice of kasuri weaving, very traditional technique for kimono, but not the formal kimono. It's like more common for more common people. So using cotton thread with indigo dyeing.
Now they live in a farm in Bloomington with their 3 children. This summer they harvested their first crop of indigo with the help of students.
We did planting and we did harvesting and composting by hand. So it takes very long time.
There's 2 different colors that you see here, and simply put, these are 2 different varieties of the same indigo plant. These are Polygonum tinctorium. This is a variety that in Japanese is called senbon, and this is a variety that's called kojoko. Blue jeans are dyed with indigo. Molecularly, it's the exact same thing as you have in these leaves, but it's a petroleum product now. And originally it was synthesized from coal tar, now petroleum. But it's still, that synthetic indigo is still the #1 selling dye stuff in the world. So people all over love it. So one of the interesting things about indigo is that it is found throughout the world. Just different regions, different plants grow in different climates. There were indigo-bearing plants in different climates, and people figured out different methods of processing them to make the dye. And so the big distinction that you have I draw the distinction between temperate region and tropical region indigos. In the temperate region indigos, like woad in Europe or like this indigo from Japan, the plants are harvested, the leaves are dried, and those leaves are composted to make the dye stuff. So this process survived in Japan when this very similar process was being destroyed in Europe through colonization and the international commercialization of indigo. There's a lot of potential in creating that connection to the materials that we work with that I think can bring a whole new level of interest and meaning to anything you make with it. It's very, very different than if you just get some blue, I call up a dye supply place and order some blue dye and mix it up with some chemicals and boom, I've got blue. It's a very, very different, very, very different. Although on the surface it might look exactly the same. I believe that inherently they're very, very different. Traditions have remained vibrant by over decades and centuries by the people who work within that tradition taking the skills and techniques that they possess and making things that are relevant to their day and age. And I think it's very important to make things that speak to people in our own day and age. But that said, I also think that working within a living tradition affords for a connection back across time to all the people who have ever worked within that tradition.